Breaking news on talkSPORT.
Yeah, good morning. This is talkSPORT Breakfast. I'm Jeff Sterling. Ray Parlour is with me. We're here right through until 10 o'clock when Jim and Simon are along, but we've got some breaking news for you right now. Let's go straight to talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, Alex Crook. Morning, Crookie.
Morning, Crookie.
Good morning, boys. Yeah, breaking news from Nottingham Forest in the last couple of minutes. They have confirmed the appointment of Sean Dyche as the club's new head coach. They say it follows a thorough recruitment process led by global head of football, Edu, and their technical director, George Sirianos. Sean Dyche, as we reported yesterday, has signed a contract until the summer of 2027. His first game in charge will be at home to Porto in the Europa League, live on talkSPORT on Thursday. They go to Bournemouth in the Premier League on Sunday afternoon as well. And also, as we reported yesterday, Dyche joined by two former Nottingham Forest players, two Forest legends in Ian Woan and Steve Stone, of course, his two trusted lieutenants from his spells at Everton and Burnley as well. A different tone to this statement than when they announced Ange Postecoglou just 8 matches ago. Then they were talking about his track record for winning trophies. In terms of Sean Dyche, they talk about his teams being defined by defensive organisation, resilience, strength from set pieces, mentioned this statement as well. And Forest say those qualities align closely with their current squad and also the club's footballing identity. So in the space of 8 games, they've gone, Forest, from talking about winning silverware to basically trying to stay in the Premier League. And it's now become a bit of a relegation dogfight, isn't it?
How do you think it'll be received by Forest fans, Crookie? I mean, obviously the fact that Ian Woan and Steve Stone are going to be alongside him is going to help.
Yeah, and obviously Dyche himself is a former Forest youth player. He still lives locally. I think this is a club that he's always had a strong affinity to. But ultimately it's going to be about results, isn't it? If he hits the ground running, starting with the game against Porto, then very quickly any fans who are cynical about this appointment will be won over. If he doesn't win games, then he could very quickly find himself in the same situation as Ange Postecoglou. It's fascinating, isn't it? If you look at the track record of teams who've appointed 3 managers in a single season, it's not usually a recipe for success, but there are plenty of matches to be played. I'd suggest there's more quality in that Forest squad than recent results suggest. And Sean Dyche is proven, isn't he? He is what he says on the tin. If Sean Dyche is your manager, you don't tend to go down.
Well, you look at the success they had, Cookie, and I think he'd go back to basics, wasn't he? And say, look, well, how did they get success like they did? And that was on the counter-attack, and he'll play that sort of style, which probably Ange couldn't do.
Yeah, and that's what makes the whole mess of this season so far all the more galling, I think, if you're a Forest fan, because they had a successful recipe. They were flirting with the Champions League places right into the final day of last season. That was built on not having much of the ball, using their wide players in particular to hit on the counter-attack, getting service into Chris Wood, who had the season of his lifetime, and by getting rid of Nuno Espirito Santo and bringing in Ange Postecoglou because they wanted to change the playing style, they came away from that, and now this almost feels like a little bit of a step back to what brought them all that success last season.
Yeah, well, Chris Wood will welcome Sean Dyche arriving, won't he? Because Ange Postecoglou didn't look to be totally convinced by him. He spent the last game sitting on the bench. I know he'd been on international duty and such like. But, of course, Dyche and Chris Wood go back to Burnley days together.
Yeah, they do. And Chris Wood could be quite a key component for Sean Dyche in terms of getting the Forest players on side with this appointment. No doubt they'll have been asking what's Sean Dyche like as a character, what's he like as a manager. But I don't think you can really pick too many holes in Sean Dyche's managerial CV. You look at what he did at Burnley, extraordinary to keep them in the Premier League for as long as he did, took them into Europe. So this won't be his first foray into Europe as a manager. Went to Everton. They had not 1 but 2 points deductions, still kept them in the Premier League. If it wasn't for the points deductions, they would have finished comfortably in mid-table. So I think Forest fans should be quite optimistic now the results can turn around. As you say, the relationship with Chris Wood could be absolutely vital to that.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, one thing that's not in question is Sean Dyche has got great man management skills.
Of course.
You know, and that's probably what's required at the moment at Forest Crookie, to paper over the sort of significant cracks that have emerged in the last few weeks.
Yeah, but they've all been self-inflicted cracks, and they self-inflicted wounds, if you like, because this was just an owner in Evangelos Marinakis, who, again, you can't question what he's done for that football club. He's awoken the sleeping giant. He's got them back in the Premier League. He's got them back into Europe for the first time in 3 decades. But why did he feel the need to meddle and cause this rift with Nuno Espirito Santo, which has undone all the good work from last season? I think Forest fans will just be hoping there's enough football still to be played that it's not going to end in relegation to the Championship. And I've got to say, you'd have been talking about it all morning, no doubt. Watching Wolves at the weekend and even more so West Ham last night, Forest are much better than both of those two teams. So I think this is going to end well for Forest.
Yeah, much better. Crookie, thank you very much indeed.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, Cookie.
So that's the breaking news. Sean Dyche confirmed as the new Nottingham Forest manager. He'll be assisted by former Forest players Ian Wone and Steve Stone as well. Let's get the thoughts now of a man who knows exactly what it is like to manage Nottingham Forest under Angelos Marinakis. Here are the thoughts of Martin O'Neill.
That would be the first thing you'd be thinking about. Although I think it's far too early myself to be looking at that. But if that's what you want to do, well then Sean Dyche will definitely keep them in. But I think that they would stay up anyway. But the answer to that there, Jim, is I really do not know. I genuinely don't know because. Whatever Marinakis is going to say to you, I think you just have to park that and just get on with it and try and win a couple of football matches.
Those are the thoughts of Martin O'Neill. We all know that Marinakis is a difficult taskmaster. Who's the most difficult manager you've played under, Ray?
Manager, well, George Graham had his standards. He was always, you couldn't fall out with George. He was always the biggest paid person there and all that sort of stuff. But I had a lot of respect for George. He gave me my debut, but he was, if you fell out with him, you'll be out of the club as quick as you got in there. So you had to be careful there. I think the famous one was Andrew Cole, who he fell out of him a little bit and he ended up at Bristol City. But look at the career Andrew had in the end, Newcastle, Manchester United. But he was probably the most difficult. Arsene Wenger was a really good character. I mean, he was Bruce Rioch. I got on okay with. He was there not for long, 9 months I think it was, but I had respect for him, and Arsene Wenger just probably took it to another level with playing and the way you looked after yourself and all that sort of stuff. The recruitment, we talk about recruitment. He had some of the French players he brought in, Nicolas Anelka, $500,000, Gal Clichy, $500,000, and he brought in Overmars, he brought in Perez, he brought in Manu Petit and Patrick Vieira, all them sort of guys. So he had the market really sus there.
I mean, the Forest boys, they're going to,
they'll enjoy that.
They will, but their heads will be spinning a bit because having brought in Ange Postecoglou with his character, his personality and his style, and now it's once again turned on its head, and we've got Sean Dyche, as I say, has got a reputation for having great man management skills. Let's get some views of a big Forest fan, legendary golfer Lee Westwood. He is a fan of the appointment.
Well, I think it's good. I mean, having listened to all those West Ham fans this morning, I'm feeling a lot more buoyant listening to them whinge. But I think he's probably a good appointment. I've met him a few times, and I think he's a nice guy, and he tends to bring along a couple of good lads with him, doesn't he? Steve Stone and Ian Wone. And we tried the attacking philosophy, didn't we, with Ange? And you see how that turned out. We went from being one of the best defensive teams, especially at set plays, to one of the worst. So, maybe we need a bit more of a defensive-minded manager. But having said that, maybe he was only defensive-minded because of the squads he had at Everton and Burnley.
The views of Lee Westwood there. Paul's not impressed with that. He said, what would a long-distance plastic fan know about football? Tell you what, Paul, just because the fact you support a club from a long distance away does not make you a plastic fan. I support my club from a long distance away. It doesn't make me a plastic fan. It doesn't make Lee Westwood a plastic fan either. I think his views are as valid as anybody else's. I think generally that's an appointment that's going to be welcomed by most Forest fans.
I think the organisation and what he's done in other clubs. They've still got good players, Nottingham Forest. It's just probably Ange couldn't get the best out of them. So I'm sure Sean Dyche will be working in that training field, getting a good, solid base again. And some of the defending last year was superb. So they've got to get back to that again. And I'm sure they will.
And the goalkeeper was superb.
Oh, absolutely.
As well. He wasn't great, didn't cover himself in glory against Chelsea. But Matt Searles last season, probably the best goalkeeper in the Premier League. Forest fans, 03717 223344 is the number to call this morning. What do you make of the appointment? Sean Dyche confirmed as your manager. We want to hear from you this morning. This is talkSPORT Breakfast.